this is Minda Wilson with Urgent Care. I'm happy to welcome my guest today, Glenn Klein. Uh, Glenn is a personal coach and a very interesting guy. Glenn, welcome.
Thank you, Minda. Thank you very much.
So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to get into coaching. I mean, I know you started out uh, coaching in real life. So camping. So how did you transition into coaching?
I just wanted to figure out my own crap. It was a joke. Apparently not a very good one, but there's some truth to it. No, my first passion was broadcasting, and then I realized that while I really enjoyed radio and broadcasting in general, I got my degree in there, that what I really wanted to do was to own and direct my boyhood summer camp in northern Wisconsin, which I did. It's called Camp Menominee. It's in a place called Eagle River, Wisconsin, way up in the beautiful North Woods.
Sounds
and
wonderful.
Basically, if you're a good camp director, you're basically a life coach. It's, as I say, organized fun with a purpose. And so I did that for 15 years, and then I had 6 children, not me by myself, of course, with my wife, Dawn, my former wife, Dawn now. And that was involving a tremendous amount of life coaching, and it just sort of naturally evolved into a full-time gig about 15 years ago.
Well, I think it's interesting because in my circle, a lot of us have kids that are boys, and I wanted to, and the world I grew up in, the expectations for men and the world that is now are very different. And I was wondering sort of what your thoughts are and how to navigate that and how to help raise boys in sort of a changing world.
What a great question. I have 4 sons and 2 daughters. And, of course, it is different, as it always has been, raising males versus females. But one of the things that I discovered in writing my book, Early Wake Up Call, which is subtitled How a Coach's Early Warnings About the Pandemic Can Help You Now, was that we have really changed as a society. I quote a number of very famous world leaders, people like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin and Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as opposed to our modern-day leaders like Donald J. Trump and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton said, "I feel your pain." JFK said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you could do for your country." What happened during those 30 years? And what happened was a thing called helicopter parenting started, where parents just began hovering over their children. Nothing bad could have happened to their kids. And I proffer a pretty solid philosophy in Early Wake-Up Call as to why that happened. But it has happened. And about 100 years ago, this thing called the women's rights movement started and manifested initially, of course, with women getting finally the right to vote in 1920. And women have evolved. Women have definitely evolved over the last 100 years. Men, not so much. And so to raise boys today, you really have to explain to them historically what has happened between the roles of the genders and, frankly, how to most effectively handle that as a male in 2020, as I like to say, 2020.
So what explanation do you give? I mean, this is a tough problem for most of us. Like, what do you tell them? Because, inherently, genetically, men are hunters, and, they're biologically, there's a whole spectrum, but biologically, if you look at where their center of the normal curve is, they have certain traits that are just inherently male. And those traits don't seem to be valued in the same way they used to be. So what do you tell them? What do you say to your kids?
I say you're just screwed, so just give it up and become gay.
Yeah, yeah. Put your head under your
No,
pillow. It's over.
I just forget about it. I point out to them that all you need to know about the difference between men and women are our genitalia. And men are out there. We're out there looking, and women are in there. Women are internally and emotionally stimulated. I speak and coach in general terms because they're generally true. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule.
Right.
Having said that, all my 4 boys happen to be straight. My 2 daughters both happen to be straight. Just how, again, genetically it turned out.
Right.
And I start with the underlying philosophy vis-a-vis the female approach is that women come first. You guys deserve the respect and the admiration that the female gender has engendered over these thousands and thousands of years. That starts number one. I also tell them that regardless if you're dealing with a man or a woman or a boss or an employee or a government or whatever you're dealing with, and again, an early wake-up call, I deal with this quite a bit about how to respond to people in your life, including the medical bureaucracy and the doctors in your life and the government, whether it be the federal government or state or local government or your friends or family or your lovers, what have you, is that if you respect yourself first, that is going to be projected onto the people that you're dealing with as a male in our society. So, of course, psychologists have a term called self-projection. Most of the time, we're projecting our inadequacies or our insecurities, our inferiority complex onto the people in our lives, including the government, for example. Mm-hmm. But if you're good with yourself, if you're self-centered, in other words, you found your center. It's a very interesting term, self-centered, I always think. But if you find yourself in your center, then the way that you treat yourself and those in your life are going to be significantly enhanced. And men in general have got to know that, you always talk about toxic masculinity now, especially since the Me Too movement got going. But there never has been a regular masculinity. Mm-hmm. Historically, generally speaking, it's always been toxic because men lorded their physical strength and their historic dominance on women to the point where, for the vast majority of human history, women were considered the property of men. Mm-hmm. That ain't true anymore. Women evolved the freedom that is in all human beings' hearts that manifested with the women's suffragette movement starting in the 1800s. To this day, women have evolved emotionally, mentally, psychologically. Generally speaking, men not so much. It's time for the male gender to wake up to the new reality, which is we know men and women are equal, thankfully. I happen to think that the female gender is superior, but that's just my opinion. But we're definitely equal. We're just not the same. And to approach or expect women to understand and behave the way you do, and this is true for women too, ladies, for you to expect your men in your life to behave and think the way you do is really ill-advised.
Yeah, because the sexes are inherently different. I mean, they're genetically inherently different.
Exactly. I mean, women are, of course, biologically designed to receive. Men are biologically designed to deliver and to penetrate. Let's start there, for example. Men are visually stimulated. Women are psychologically, emotionally, intellectually stimulated. Survey after survey, men, what do you find attractive about women? It's always TNA, sexiness, fitness, and then down the road, intelligence, humor, ambition, confidence. Women, what do you find attractive in men? Not six-pack abs, fellas. It's always confidence. This is why women are drawn to the so-called bad boys, because the bad boys are giving off a faux confidence, a counterfeit confidence, and many of them end up being really just massive jerks, because once the women start testing and pushing buttons, which you have to do, women always do this with their guys. They get them, they're attracted to them, and then they start try to push them away, because it's a biological imperative The ladies, it's part of the mating ritual. They are literally protecting their womb and their future children. They're seeing if the guys are worthy of their womb. And if a guy doesn't know what he's doing, see, back in the day, guys didn't have to worry about it. You could just backhand a woman. You could be considered a fine, upstanding citizen and beat the crap out of your wife or your girlfriend. That's not true anymore, thankfully. So what we have now is guys who have not considered these things, but they know they can't hit their women. They can't dominate them or domineer them, I should say, the way that men throughout history have. So there's a way to approach this, fellas, and you can just go to my website or call me, and we could talk about it if you want.
And the approach is to be centered. You're saying that being centered in yourself will make you more confident and more able to manage your interactions with people. Is that am I misunderstanding you?
Not at all, but that's true for both men and women, for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
To know your true nature, not what's going on between your ears, but what's actually always present in your heart. That's true for everybody. That's why we really are equal. We're equal with God as far as I'm concerned. We are as righteous as God. We just don't know it. We were told by religion that we were born sinners in need of salvation. That is BS. That's why it's called the new covenant. It's a new thing, but the old covenant has been embraced through religion through all these thousands of years, much to the detriment of humanity. The reality is, spiritually speaking, and the spiritual perspective is that everybody is born perfect and righteous and without sin, actually. You start there, whether you're male or female or non-binary, and then the process of what Dr. Joe Dispenza has researched. This is scientific. This kind of meditation, thought process, self-talk, there's all kinds of ways to describe it. At my website for my podcast, Sex in the Pews, we have this literally a whole page on the affirmations, how to affirm yourself. That process literally produces confidence and peace of mind. And it's not a one-time deal. I mean, for me, I'm marinating this all day long. That's how I went from, at 40 years old, being diagnosed with bipolar syndrome and having gone through all the medications and that whole process and just about killed myself. I was manifesting every side effect that you see on these commercials on television for bipolar medication. Seizures, fainting, amnesia, what's it called when you can't sleep? Insomnia, all the things. Constipation, every one of them, including increased thoughts of suicide. Did 2 rounds of that. And then I just stumbled onto this affirmational mindfulness practice, and I don't have bipolar syndrome anymore, I'm happy to report. And I think no matter what somebody is dealing with, whether it be being brought up in toxic masculinity, somebody that was molested or abused or was from an abusive relationship or is an alcoholic or whatever the genetic code led us down the path to, I think being centered and knowing who you truly are, your true identity, as not a human doing. We're not human doings. We're human beings. But the first thing that everybody asks, Minda, is always, what do you do? I always ask, hey, what do you be? Who do you be? They look at me like I'm nuts. But I said, aren't we human beings? So what do you be? Are you depressed? Are you stressed out? Are you full of anxiety? Do you have panic disorder? What's going on in your house between your ears? That's where we live. I love when people say, I just want to get out of my head. I got to get out of my head. I'm like, good luck with that. That's called being brain dead if you get out of your head. And that's not possible, of course. So the question is, what can you replace in your head, which needs to come out of your mouth, because that's how this thing works. It's like the difference between listening to a beautiful song sung versus reading the lovely lyrics on a page. Reading poetry or lyrics is beautiful, but when you hear a poem or when you hear a song sung and performed beautifully, that has the dramatic difference on the human soul, the human brain, our mind, our intellect, our will, our memories, our emotions. So when you meditate, and all meditate, we want to do hippie woo-woo meditation, but all meditate means something. It just means to talk about. But when you talk about the fact that you are perfect, you are righteous, you are holy, you're sinless, you're as holy and sinless as God is, that out of your mouth into your ears, that causes the lowering of the temperature. What Viktor Frankl, the famous psychoanalyst who wrote the all-time greatest book, Man's Search for Meaning, called Mental Hygiene, what David Allen calls taking a mind sweep, what I call taking a brain poop. It's all the same thing. We got to get the toxins out and the good stuff in. And Dr. Joe Dispenza has done all this research now to indicate the physical benefit of taking on this kind of mindfulness practice or the shadow work. There's many ways to describe it. But you guys, this is the key. Whether you're male, female, non-binary, Democrat, Republican, if you're straight or gay or bi or you're trying to have sex. That was a joke too, Minda. And so it doesn't make a difference how you identify outwardly. The key is to identify and to know your true identity internally.
It sounds like a non-medical cure, not a cure, for a solution for mental health, and it's a tool that really is important that people should be aware of.
I think so, and it is foundation for Sex and the Pews, for the podcast. It's the foundation for my coaching and everything that I do. It's the foundation for the book. And the funny thing about it is that we did not, this group that I'm involved in is called the Gospel Revolution, which is the Christianity-free gospel. We didn't know that this was going to happen. We were just looking for answers because this is a group of people. Gospel Revolution is basically a recovery program for Christians within all religion, but definitely evangelicalism and fundamentalism, which I was involved in as a Jewish guy in my mid-20s and into my 30s. In any case, we didn't know that. We looked to religion for the answers for depression and anxiety and bipolar and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. This was we stumbled onto this, but then we saw in this Jewish guy's writings, his name was Saul, he becomes the Apostle Paul. He was a Jewish dude, and he becomes St. Paul in Catholicism, but he was just a Jewish rabbi. And he's the first one ever to be known to say there's no male, there's no female, there's no Jew, there's no Gentile, there's no free people, there's no slaves. We are all the same, spiritually speaking. And the thought of this and the understanding of this will cleanse your soul. It'll renew your mind. That was 2,000 years ago. You guys just got the right to vote in this country 100 years ago. So it's taken a minute, but it's happening. We're actually getting better at this thing called life, Minda. We are getting much better. I know it doesn't seem like it, you guys, but for example, there are less people dying from warfare per capita right now than in the entirety of human history. I mean, how's that possible? We can kill each other so easily because the connectivity to our true identity, that we are one, that we really are righteous, is dawning on us more and more and more, to the point where slavery ended about 150 years ago. Women got equal rights about 100 years ago. We even have rights for gay and transgender people now in this country. Who would have ever thunk of that? But there it is. We're seeing it. So we're getting better at this. I mean, Israel just signed a peace treaty with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain the other day. That's incredible in the middle of all this craziness. That's more manifestation of the good stuff that's happening. Because even without the mindfulness practice being active in an individual's life, I mean, I don't know if Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is doing a lot of meditation. He might be. I don't know. And I don't know if the sultans in the UAE and Bahrain and whoever's in charge in those Arab countries are doing it. They might be. But it's so pervasive now in the earth that it's influencing everybody, even if they're not aware of it. It's a very powerful thing, actually.
And so in this climate in the United States, though, it seems like people can't communicate with each other. Like we're getting more closed off in our ability to reach out and interact with each other. And how can we take this practice and sort of extend it so that we're on difficult subjects more comfortable dealing with people who may not be 100% aligned with what we're thinking?
Yeah, this is why we do shows like Urgent Care and Sex and Abuse and stuff. I mean, that we did you just go meh? Or was that an agreement sound I heard?
No, I was saying yes.
Oh, you're saying yes. Yeah. No, I really do think that that's accurate. Uh, yeah, we know the term. There's so many cliches I love to use because the reason that things are cliches is because there's truth behind them. And there is the truth that it is always darkest before the dawn. And it is that if you're ever up at dawn and you're up an hour or so before dawn, it is darkest right before it starts getting light out. And that's what's happening. But regardless of what happens in the rest of our lifetime, there's going to be the ebbs and flows of society and the world. This has always been, and it's going to be progressively improving, but not in our lifetime to any massive degree. Except, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that Israel now has a peace treaty with another 2 Arab countries besides Egypt and Jordan. That's very cool. I think it's great that my beautiful 29-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful daughter is married to my son-in-law, who's a dark-skinned, gorgeous Puerto Rican kid, and they live in Savannah, Georgia, and they can walk down hand in hand at the riverfront there in Savannah without a care in the world that they're going to be attacked or being lynched because they're showing public affection as a mixed-race couple. That's improvement, and there's going to be more to it, too. There's going to be more stuff like that. So, but the key for you guys and for me and for Minda is to do the work individually. Don't look to a politician or a government or a medical bureaucracy for your physical or mental health. That was the point of early wake-up call. These are things. I wrote the book after making all these predictions in a blog about early on. That's why it's early wake-up call, because I was like, the way that the society was responding from the top on down to all the beautiful humans, all the public. I was like, this ain't making any sense to me. And I started posting about it, and oh my, did I get attacked for stepping out of the conventional wisdom and the party line. Then I wrote a blog about it, and I made a bunch of predictions in there that within the first several weeks after the blog was released were coming to pass, and they still are. And I thought to myself, how the hell did I know this? I'm not that smart. And then I realized all I had done was overlay on the pandemic the life coaching principles that I had started at the summer camp, continued with my own children, and that had been a part of my radio shows and podcast and my life coaching for the last 15 years. And I realized, obviously, we can all relate to what we've gone through since last March. So using that, I realized there was a book here, and I specifically dissect and diagnose the mistakes that were made, what should have been done, but I didn't do it in a Monday morning quarterback fashion. This was done in real time, and I think you guys will find it interesting. You can get on Amazon, et cetera. It's called Early Wake Up Call.
Mm-hmm. And it helps people. I think comprehension leads to a certain level of understanding, and then maybe will open the door to communication so that people can start talking again.
Yeah, it's going to take for this country, and who knows, maybe we have them coming up, and not these two guys that are running, but maybe we have somebody coming up, a Martin Luther King Jr. figure, or a Mahatma Gandhi, or somebody like that will challenge the status quo and the other side and hold both their own political party and the other political party accountable and go. You know, it's one of the successes of Ronald Reagan. He would just go to the American people. He'd go over the heads of Congress. He and Tip O'Neill, the Democrat Speaker of the House, very liberal from Massachusetts, used to have drinks at night together. They got a bunch of stuff done. As a libertarian myself, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what they got done. But the fact of the matter is the tone in the country was significantly improved from the time that Nixon resigned, and then you had Gerald Ford temporarily and Jimmy Carter. And remember, Carter talked about a malaise in this country. And Reagan said, no, our best are ahead. And so, and Reagan was not a stupid guy, even though his political opponents tried to make him out to that. And then here we saw the downfall of the Soviet Union. You remember when you and I were kids and young people, Minda, the Soviet Union was a fait accompli. That was going to always be there. And then literally almost overnight, boom, Soviet Union gone, the Berlin Wall gone. I actually just had a woman on Sex in the Pews named Sandra Coos who was there. She was in West Germany. She was German. And what a fascinating conversation that was with her, not only about that, about how she overcame her personal trauma of molestation and rape as a young girl and woman. But that was some traumatic times and some really incredible progress that happened there, and it happened seemingly overnight. But a lot of people worked a long time to see the downfall of the Soviet Union, and then it happened in 1989 and 1990, and then Reagan got Alzheimer's and died, like we all are going. I mean, we're not going to all get Alzheimer's, but we're all dead. You guys, you realize that, right? We are all actually dead. We're just a question of in between the time that you come out of your mama's womb and the time you breathe your last breath. Are you dying, or are you living before you die? And I just made a decision a long time ago. I was going to live and not die, or not be dying until I die. Then I'm going to die. It's really important to embrace, guys. You want some mental health? Embrace the inevitable. Don't be afraid. That's one of the things about the frickin' COVID pandemic. People are so freaked out about dying. People didn't used to be so freaked out about dying. People died all the time. People still die all the time. And ironically, the more worried you are about dying, the faster you'll bring it on, because we know the number one cause of premature death is mismanaged stress. So let's stress out about this and not have modalities about how to manage stress properly and eat healthier and understand how stress happens and how you can use stress to your benefit. Let's just all hunker down, stay home, stay safe, save lives. Yeah, that's really smart. I love a meme I just saw the other day. It said, "Save lives, stop living." It's like, yeah, that's true. If we never did it, would be less jeopardy, but it wouldn't be as fun, that's for sure.
So if people want to reach out to listen to your podcast, acquire your book, what's the best way for them to do it?
I've got Minda's personal cell phone. Please call her. And, I'll give you that right now.
Absolutely.
That was
biggest fan.
That was a joke. Just go to my website. It's just CoachGlennKlein.com. COACH, Glenn with two N's, Klein, Klein, like Calvin Klein, just with a little less money.com.
And they can learn more about what your philosophy about. They can get your book, and they can find out when your podcasts are.
Yeah,
at your
absolutely.
website.
Or you guys just call me. I will give my cell phone out, and I do it for two reasons. I will tell you, as I say, my cell phone is 813-363-9545. 813-363-9545. I give it out for two reasons, because I want you to call me. I want you to become a client of mine and buy my book. But much more importantly than that, you or people that you know may be considering killing themselves. And the key to knowing that, or the key to maybe not doing it, because once you do that, then it's over. It's the ultimate manifestation of depression, the ultimate symptom. But we have a suicide hotline. But if you have, even through this program, just a little bit of connection with somebody like myself, you may be willing to call me at 813-363-9545 before you do something that you can't take back. And so that's why I give it out too. So call me if you're thinking about killing yourself. Don't do it till you call me, at least. Okay. Thank you.
It's been a really great pleasure. I hope to have you back again, Glenn. And thank you very much for your time. Check out Glenn's website. And this is Minda Wilson for Urgent Care.